Hey, what is up, y'all? Michael Hernandez here, MLH Media. We are on the road to A1 Combat 26 over there in the beautiful Hard Rock, Sacramento, and I'm here with one half of the matchup over there, one of the featured fights, Shane Collins versus James Sauce Marley Guidry. NorCal versus SoCal going down over there in Sacramento, and I got one part of it. Shane Collins, Mr. Hollywood. How you doing, my man?
Doing fantastic, brother. How are you?
I'm always great, man. Always great pleasure getting to speak with you. Last time I got to speak to you was a little bit after that matchup over there in October against another NorCal native in Saifullah Dashkalov. How you doing, my man? Ever since then, it's been a crazy time. I mean, California's been on fire.
Yeah.
You know, Christmas has passed, Thanksgiving's passed. So much has happened.
It's been a wild time. It's good to talk to you on better terms. The last time I talked to you, I was barely seeing anything, had some cuts all over the face, broken orbital, messed up eyes, eye pokes. I mean, it was a nightmare. So it's good to be talking to you, approaching another fight, feeling good, in a much better place than we were last time. But yeah, I'm excited.
Is it good to actually see me? You know, because last time may have not been able to see me as much, right?
Yeah, bro. When your eyesight gets compromised, it puts everything in perspective. So I'm happy and I'm blessed to be back here after a short turnaround. It was a quick recovery, so right back on the horse, ready to go again February 7th.
And we were talking about that just a little bit, but can you detail for some of the fans like how a recovery for an orbital does go? Because I don't feel like a lot of people, I mean, you know, people break their ankles all the time, people break an arm, you know, but not every day you mess up your eye. You know, that's a pretty essential part of the whole human body's, you know, and a lot of people don't realize it. And it's like how you said, you don't know what you got until you lose it, man. So detail that recovery, man, because I'm pretty sure it was a hell of a road.
It was an interesting one because I had two different injuries on my eye. One was a laceration from his actual eye poke, which like cut the inside of my eyelid or my actual eye. So that one took a few days to recover. And then the orbital break happened when he like swarmed me in the second round when I couldn't see or whatever. And it actually, like, I feel like orbitals probably break pretty easily in fights because it's not a huge bone and it's not a very like dense bone. And obviously it's a targeted area in a fight. You're going to get hit anywhere around the cheekbone. That's your orbital. And orbitals are weird, man, because a couple different things can happen. Like, I've broken my orbital once before, and I lost feeling in half my face, half my tongue. It was the weirdest sensation ever. And then once the orbital heals, then everything kind of goes back to normal. And this was kind of the same way, where I had the orbital break, and then there was swelling in my orbital, which caused my eye muscle, like my actual eye muscle, to swell, which was causing my like vision misalignment. So then once the swelling went down, my eyesight returned the same way that it did previously in the past, where I lost feeling in half my face. But there's like, dude, it's a nightmare. Like, the orbital there's a lot of nerves in there, a lot of like weird shit can happen. So I've had like two very different, very extreme injuries, I guess, to that bone. But the reason I was able to make a quick turnaround, like we talked about before, was like, it's not a super thick bone from what I understand, and it gets a lot of blood flow, so it heals pretty quickly. After I broke it, the doctor, when I went to like a specialist for the orbital, and he was like, I mean, you'll be healed in like 3 weeks. He's like, if you wanted to get punched in the face, I don't recommend it, but if you wanted to get punched in the face 3 weeks from now, you'll be good to go. So obviously, I had some recovery time in there. I had to take me and the boys. We went to China for Ozzy Diaz's UFC debut, so I had some kind of recovery time in there. And then by the time we got back, it was kind of back on the horse again, eased back into training, and now we're full bore in the next fight.
How was, I know going over there to China, weren't able to produce the results maybe that Ozzy had wanted to produce for that debut, but how was it over there? UFC's first event over there in China in quite some time. Ozzy was obviously brought in on, you know, a little bit of a short notice. How's everything with him? Is it possibility we see him back in the UFC? I know he was picked up on short
100%.
notice, you know, so.
100%. I mean, he went out there and fought up-and-coming light heavyweight prospect in China, in his hometown. Total B side of the equation, and we were really proud of the way that he performed, the way that he was composed and followed the game plan, and he got caught with a good elbow, and it is what it is. Just being over there, understanding like the UFC operations and all that stuff, going through the entire fight week was definitely a very motivating and eye-opening experience because, man, it's UFC and everything else. And like, there's PFL, there's whatever's happening, GFL, I don't care. to me, it's UFC and everything else. The way that they operated, the smoothness, it was really unbelievable. It was essentially like a first class business trip up until the point that you step into the cage. Like everything is taken care of, all your meals, all your, recovery stuff. You have chaperones taking you from this place to this place. Like everything is so efficient until you like step out and go to the cage. And it was a crazy experience for his UFC debut. It was a fight night, but it was in China, and it was like a sold out arena. It was a huge arena, so it felt the same as a pay-per-view, I would imagine, but it's like quiet. The locker rooms are quiet. Everything is like so smooth and taken care of. And then they're like, all right, are you ready to walk? And then you walk out there and it's a packed arena. It was definitely a very motivating experience, and I can't wait to be there myself.
It for sure must have been pretty cool, especially because the UFC hadn't been there in so long. So, it's not like we're spoiled over here in the States sometimes. We don't realize how much of an access we do actually have to these fight night cards. But over there in China, I believe it had been like over 3 or 4 years since the UFC had last gone back over there. So it had been quite some time. So those fans are probably waiting for a big time fight. And I mean, they definitely got it. That main event was killer as well over there. Did you get to watch the whole card?
No, I mean, as soon as your fight is over, like you walk from the cage to medicals, and then you have a chaperone take you back up to the hotel. So like you don't see anything. It's like boom, boom, you're in, you're out. You don't go back to the locker room. Once you're in the locker room, you warm up, you pack all your shit, and then you take it out. You don't go back to the locker room, which I like better, because if I'm thinking to myself, like, usually when I'm warming up for my fight, some guy who was in my locker room just got messed up. He's got knocked out. Now he's back in my locker room all depressed. And I'm like, oh, geez, got to, like, warm up.
Yeah, you got to.
Like, they got none of that. They're like, as soon as your fight is over, you're gone. You're back to the hotel. You don't see nobody else in the locker room. So I appreciate that. That might be, like, the most like, beneficial thing that I saw that's very different from the way that most promotions are run. That's a very, like, that's big for the mental of the fighters going into their bouts, to not see the guy that was warming up next to them 20 minutes ago got knocked out or got a huge cut over his face or whatever it is. So I think that's a pretty cool aspect about the way the UFC is run.
And I didn't even think about it like that, because you often hear, you've heard like guys like Johnny Walker, you hear the stories sometimes about the fights in Vegas, where, and that makes sense, where it's a big venue, they're not going to have as much space, maybe at like a Noche, they're not going to have the space to have the fighters, or they're not going to have the space to have the fighters and their friends or families. But, over there in China, I was curious as to see if you guys would kind of stick around for the card, but it's very nice to know. And it's interesting, like how you said too, because I would think if I was a fighter warming up, I probably wouldn't want that circumstance brought upon myself as well. Like how you said.
I don't think it has anything to do with the size of the venue or anything. I just imagine that that's how every UFC is run. I'm sure this weekend for the LA card, it's the same thing. Like as soon as you fight, you're out of the locker room, you're back up to the hotel. They're like, I'm pretty sure that's how it works. I don't think you're allowed to stick around, and because they're liable for your behavior before and after the fights. So if a fighter gets like a cool victory and just goes out in the crowd and starts harassing people, it's like going to be on the news. So they take you right back to the hotel. It's very efficient. The business there is very efficient. So I can't wait to be there myself. And Ozzy's got his next fight already lined up. Obviously, he took a big fight against their up-and-coming guy at light heavyweight, which was not his normal weight class. So he's dropping back down to middleweight through the guidance of the UFC PI dietitians and all that kind of stuff. So we're very excited for him. He's spending a lot of time in Vegas, utilizing the PI and all the facilities they have out there in Vegas. So excited for him.
And then, I mean, I would be remiss if we didn't talk about the city of Los Angeles right now. Obviously, a whole lot going on over there. How has that kind of been for you and your team? I know you guys are obviously adjusting, trying to get everything ready, but I mean, the whole city of Los Angeles, like, I tell everybody all the time, if you're not from the state of California, you don't know Los Angeles, because it truly is like a blue-collar, like, city. Like, you'll have people there that have, like, 3 or 4 jobs and like just consistent like continue grind, and like I feel like that's not shown in other cities. And I feel like the MMA fighters get the perfect representation of that, because you guys all you have your own grinds, you have your own jobs, and then on top of that you have your own careers. So how has that kind of been dealing with everything, with the wildfires, with everything going on over there? I know you're not super close to the area as of now, but still, I mean, it's got to affect you in some ways, right?
I mean, the air quality was awful for about a week. Like I'd walk outside and there'd be an inch of ash on every windshield that I had. So there was definitely a period of time there where we weren't really outside. And I'm not even too sure about the continuation of the fires. I believe that if they're not done, that they're kind of only in the hills at this point, and they're trying to like settle it down so it doesn't spread to a different community. But yes, for as far as I'm concerned, like the fires in the neighborhoods are kind of over. But I mean, it's crazy, dude. It was crazy. And like you said, LA is, there's a lot of glitz, a lot of glamour, but there's also, most of it is just hardworking people working 2-3 jobs, living in the most expensive, overpriced city in the entire world. So, but I mean, yeah, it's a weird thing. Obviously, the very expensive cities in Los Angeles are the ones that burn down, which is like very crazy to see. The $20-30 million houses on PCH in Malibu are gone. The houses in Pacific Palisades are gone. Like, but it didn't really spread to those inner city areas or anything like that. And so, again, I live in Lawndale, which is like near Manhattan, Hermosa Beach, that kind of area. And I live out here, and then I train down in Huntington, which is south. It wasn't really in my face as much as just seeing the smoke and seeing all the flames. Like at night, you can see it from where I'm at. But other than that, it was just the air quality I had to deal with for the last week and a half. But most of my time is spent a little bit south.
No, and I knew you weren't too in the direct contact of it, but
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
still,
yeah.
man, it is a huge
crazy.
thing going on over there. It's still got to affect you in some ways, man. So, I mean, obviously,
Most expensive
best of-
wildfire in the country ever, I think.
Yeah, I think
Because
it's
of
biggest
where
in
it burned.
California's history. Could be wrong.
It might not be the biggest in size, but it's definitely the most expensive considering the real estate that was burned down. You're talking the average price of a house in the Pacific Palisades is $2 or $3 million. So like you're talking about a ton of money. That it's insane. It really is.
No,
insane.
Larry June wasn't lying, man. Palisades, it's a beautiful place, man. You know, that's the first thing I was thinking about when I heard the Palisades was burning. I was like, Larry June's gonna be crying right now. But
Yes.
hey, my brother, you got a huge fight over there. You're gonna be representing that SoCal area of Mr. Hollywood Shane Collins. Gonna be taking on James Sauce Marley Guidry. How are you feeling about the matchup? Originally, we were supposed to be with your teammate Bruno Souza. He was gonna be in that main event, but some things tapered off. We don't know if he has an opponent just yet, but we know you're going to be over there. Really excited to see you come back to NorCal, my man. You excited?
Yes, sir.
I'm excited to be coming back. Well. I mean, you know.
I love to travel. I love to go to people's hometowns. I love to go all across the country. Really, I've fought all across the world, so this is nothing different for me. I'm bummed, but also relieved that Bruno won't be on the card with me as well. We tried to get my fight to be early on the main card. That way I could corner him and vice versa. But just not having to deal with that is kind of pressure off my back, and now I get my corner. You know, Bruno's going to be probably the lead in my corner, which is big for me. So I'm excited about that, and it's a good fight for me. It's the right next step in the journey. Obviously, I've fought some tough guys already, and James is no different. I have nothing but respect for him. I have nothing but admiration for what he's done. He's very skilled. He's got some good qualities, some good assets to his game, and it's going to be a good fight. It's going to be a good fight for sure.
The classic NorCal versus SoCal matchup. I mean, I got to give it to Tom Anderson on this one. I thought it was perfect. It's like the Bay Area representation over there, and then you got the SoCal boy. I mean, what are your thoughts overall about where this matchup kind of puts you in terms of the A1 combat trajectory? I know, I mean, having a previous victory over here could be 2-0 in the promotion. I know you got your buddy Bruno with the belt over there, but he's possibly looking at, I mean, I've seen him cracking some top guys to get back into the UFC lately. So I don't know if he's going to be worried about that belt pretty soon. Is there any chance we see you kind of take over that crown?
Yeah, of course. NorCal, SoCal, I don't care. I am California. I'm the United States, and very soon I will show everybody that I'm not just the best featherweight in California, but the entire United States outside of the UFC. But right now it's time for James Guidry. That will come later. And right now Bruno is the featherweight champion for A1 Combat. He deserves to be in the UFC, and we're trying to get him the right fights to propel him to where he needs to be. And I think the next step for him is to drop down to bantamweight, where he competed about a year ago, and he might be fighting for the A1 Bantamweight Championship. We'll see what happens with that. But I think we've seen his last fight in California at 145 pounds for now. Trying to get him back into the UFC is kind of the main goal. So if he vacates that belt, I'm definitely coming for it.
And there's a ton of, I mean, just 145 talent in the state of California overall. I mean, I feel like California, if we had like to put our 135ers to 155ers regional wise against anybody in the state, I mean, come on, like,
Man,
killers over here, killers.
there's a lot of good talent in California. California's always had that kind of breeding ground, and I think it's just a very competitive scene. You know what I mean? Obviously, they have some good talent out in Texas fighting for Fury, some good talent in Florida. I think California and those two states are probably the most competitive. But I think we have a great amateur scene as well, which is a very underappreciated element about developing talent in California. The amateur fighting scene in California is very competitive, whether you're fighting in LA or in San Diego or even at 559 fights or whatever it is. I know I fought a lot of tough guys when I was an amateur, a lot of guys who are undefeated now as professionals, and I had a lot of experience as an amateur, and I think that will continue to carry into my professional career. And like I said, as of now, I'm, 2-0, soon to be 3-0. And maybe I don't have the quote-unquote experience to be fighting for a big promotions title like A1, but I'm going to show very soon that is just a record. That's just a simple number of fights as a professional. The experience that I bring into the cage, paired with the skill set, I don't think that there's anybody in the state of California who can compete with me, to be honest with you.
Mr. Shane Hollywood Collins over there in the beautiful state of California. But I mean, representing SoCal to its fullest, my man over there.
Yes, sir.
Is there anybody in particular, anybody you want to thank in this call? I know you have a lot of people that help support you and get you on your way to this journey in particular, but anybody you want to thank before this matchup going into February 7th over there at the Hard Rock?
I mean, so many people to thank, so many people who help make my life or give me the ability to focus solely on this. Obviously, I have sponsors and other people who help out so I can just stay focused on my training. And my training has never been better in my entire career. People talk about eat, sleep, train, repeat. That's all I do. I train, I come back, I nap, I sleep, I go train again, I come back, I nap, I eat, I sleep. Like, this is all I do, is just train and focus on my fights. And I have a lot of people to thank. I've also been able to, one of the more fortunate things about Southern California is there's a lot of great technical training all over the place. The only unfortunate part is you got to drive all over the place. So, I mean, on a daily basis, I'm training with a brilliant striking coach out in Whittier, and then I'm training with Nick Boley, who's an AOJ black belt down in Huntington, and I'm training with Jesse Doyle, who's an amazing wrestling coach for MMA down in Huntington as well. Like, I'm all over the place every single day down in Southern California, just getting the absolute best training possible. So I'm really excited for my fight coming up here. I think I'm going to show a completely different type of skill set, composure, and all of these types of things when I step into that cage. And I think all the training that I've been doing, I'm starting to really figure it out. And yeah, like I said, Cobra team #1, but I got a lot of other great coaches and a lot of great minds that I am learning from and developing from. So I'm excited.
A great team, a great unit, and as they say, it takes a village over there, Mr. Shane Collins. Shane Hollywood Collins, my guy, 2-0, now possibly looking to go 3-0 over there. A1 Combat, 26th, February 7th at the Hard Rock in Sacramento. My man, Shane Collins, thank you so much for your time today, brother. Always a great pleasure,
of course, brother.
to speak with you.
Anytime.
Michael Hernandez here, MLH Media. I'm going to be signing out.